The massive starship descended through the shimmering atmosphere of Celestial Academy's primary campus, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the pale purple sky. Inside, Junho Park sat quietly, his fingers nervously tracing the edge of his standard-issue student tablet. He was the first human ever transferred to this intergalactic educational institution, a place where thousands of alien species from hundreds of different planets gathered to learn and compete. As the landing ramp extended, Junho took a deep breath. His dark hair was neatly combed, his uniform crisp and perfectly pressed. Unlike the other students who would tower over him, he was average height for a human, about 5'9", with a lean build that suggested more intelligence than physical strength. The moment he stepped onto the campus ground, everything changed. Massive creatures with multiple limbs, translucent skin, and strange appendages turned to stare. Some whispered, some pointed, most looked confused by his presence. Junho knew he was an anomaly, a single human among thousands of advanced alien. Species Dohyun, the lead student of the Kraxus tribe, noticed Junho immediately, standing nearly 8 feet tall with 4 muscular arms and skin that shifted colors like a living hologram. Dohyun represented everything Junho was not: powerful, intimidating, naturally dominant. "Look at the human," Dohyun said to his group of friends, his voice a low rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the air. So small, so weak. How did something like that get admission here? The campus was a technological marvel. Floating platforms connected massive crystalline buildings. Holographic displays showed complex mathematical equations and scientific diagrams. Students moved using anti-gravity devices, while communication happened through a mixture of spoken languages and telepathic signals. Junho walked with purpose. He had earned his place here through exceptional test scores and recommendation letters from top Earth researchers. His academic record was impeccable, but that meant nothing to the alien students who saw humans as a primitive species. A group of Kraxus students deliberately bumped into him, causing his tablet to fall. Before it could hit the ground, Junho smoothly caught it, a movement so quick that it surprised even the bullies. They hadn't expected such reflexes. "Interesting," muttered one of Dohyun's friends, "a creature with multiple eyes and tentacle-like appendages. The human has some speed." But Junho said nothing. He understood that in this environment, words meant little. Performance would be his only true language. Each step he took was calculated, each movement precise. Years of training on Earth had prepared him for exactly this moment. The orientation hall was a massive structure that could easily accommodate thousands of students. Holographic screens displayed welcome messages in hundreds of different languages and communication formats. Junho found his assigned seat, carefully observing everything around him. Dohyun and his group sat nearby, continuously casting dismissive glances. They represented the academic elite, students from species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. Junho represented humanity, a species still considered relatively new to interstellar exploration. As the orientation began, complex holographic presentations started explaining the Academy's rules, challenges, and expectations. While other students seemed overwhelmed, Junho's eyes remained focused, absorbing every single detail. Something about Junho was different. Behind his calm exterior was a mind constantly analyzing, processing, and preparing. The bullies saw a small human. What they didn't see was a strategist, a problem solver who had been selected from millions of candidates to represent human potential. The first day was just beginning, but Junho already understood the unspoken rules of this complex ecosystem. Survival here would not be about physical strength. It would be about intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to turn limitations into advantages. As the orientation continued, Junho allowed himself a small, almost imperceptible smile. The real challenge was just about to begin. The days following, Junho's arrival became a careful study of survival and strategy. While other students saw him as an easy target, he transformed every interaction into a learning opportunity. His neural-enhanced tablet, a device far more advanced than it appeared, silently recorded and analyzed every moment of campus life. During lunch periods, Junho would sit alone, but his isolation was intentional. He observed the social dynamics of different alien species, noting how they communicated, how their hierarchies worked, and what triggered their responses. The Craxus students, led by Do-hyun, would often walk past, making loud comments designed to provoke a reaction. "Humans are so primitive," Do-hyun would say loud enough for Junho to hear. "They've barely left their own solar system, and now they think they can compete with advanced civilizations." Junho never responded. Instead, he would tap something into his tablet, his fingers moving with practiced precision. To the casual observer, it might have looked like he was taking notes. In reality, he was building a complex database of information about his potential opponents. The Academy's technological infrastructure was incredibly complex. Holographic displays, quantum communication networks, and adaptive learning systems created an environment that most students found overwhelming. But Junho saw these as opportunities, not challenges. During a mandatory technology workshop, while other students struggled with the advanced interface, Junho moved through the systems with surprising ease. He understood that technology was just another language, one he was fluent in. His fingers danced across holographic controls, solving complex problems that left his instructors surprised. One particular instructor, a crystalline being named Vox, noticed Junho's unique approach. Where other students followed preset algorithms, Junho created new pathways, finding solutions that weren't in any standard manual. Vox made a mental note. This human was different. Junho's strategy wasn't about confrontation. It was about information, understanding, and preparation. Each day he collected more data about the Craxus tribe. He studied their communication patterns, their biological responses, their social structures. What looked like passive observation was actually a carefully constructed intelligence-gathering mission. The campus had dozens of training areas where students could practice various skills. Junho would spend hours watching combat simulations, technological challenges, and interdisciplinary competitions. He wasn't just a passive observer. He was learning, analyzing, preparing. Do-hyun and his group continued their attempts to intimidate. They would accidentally bump into Junho, leave threatening messages in his digital communication queue, and spread rumors about human weakness. But Junho remained calm, almost unnervingly so. At night, in the privacy of his small dormitory pod, Junho would compile his collected data. Complex algorithms ran through his tablet, creating predictive models about potential confrontations. He wasn't preparing to fight. He was preparing to outthink his opponents. The other human students who had applied to the academy had been rejected. Junho knew he carried the hopes of an entire planet. Every move he made wasn't just about his personal success. It was about proving humanity's potential on a galactic stage. His physical training was equally precise. While he didn't look muscular, Junho had undergone extensive conditioning. Earth's military and scientific training programs had prepared him for exactly this type of high-pressure environment. Every movement was calculated, every response measured. The academy system rewarded innovation and problem-solving. Traditional strength meant little compared to adaptive intelligence, and in this arena, Junho knew humans had a unique advantage that most alien species overlooked. As weeks passed, something started to change. The students who once looked at Junho with dismissal began to watch him with curiosity. His silent strategy was working. He was transforming from a potential victim to an unknown variable. Do-hyun began to feel something he had never experienced before: uncertainty. The human he had expected to easily crush was proving to be something entirely different. Each day, the balance of power seemed to shift slightly, almost imperceptibly. Junho continued his silent preparation, waiting for the perfect moment. He wasn't just a student. He was a weapon being carefully, meticulously constructed. One algorithm, one observation at a time. The real challenge was coming, and he would be ready. The Galactic Academic Challenge arrived with massive anticipation. Every year, student teams from different species competed in a complex series of technological and strategic problems that tested the limits of their collective intelligence. This wasn't just a competition, it was a showcase of potential, a chance to prove superiority. Junho stood quietly as team assignments were announced. Most expected him to be left out or placed in a weak group. Instead, he found himself surrounded by an unlikely collection of students, each from a marginalized species, each previously overlooked by the Academy's traditional ranking systems. There was Kira, a small insectoid creature from a remote colony world, whose computational skills were extraordinary but often ignored. Next to her stood Ryan, a silicon-based life form whose body looked more like a crystalline structure than a traditional organism. They had been considered too different, too unusual for mainstream teams. Do-hyun's team, by contrast, looked perfect. 5 massive alien species, each representing the top performers of their respective planets. They wore matching uniforms that seemed to pulse with technological enhancements. Their confidence was visible from across the massive competition hall. The first challenge appeared on the giant holographic display, a quantum navigation problem that required solving complex spatial movement through an artificial asteroid field. Most teams immediately began using standard computational methods, their neural interfaces working overtime to calculate potential paths. Junho's approach was different. While others saw a mathematical problem, he saw a living system. He started discussing with his team, not about numbers, but about patterns, about understanding the underlying logic of movement. His team looked confused initially, then slowly began to understand his unique perspective. Where other teams used rigid algorithms, Junho introduced something revolutionary, an adaptive problem-solving approach that combined mathematical precision with intuitive thinking. His team started moving differently, their solutions becoming more fluid, more organic. The competition hall had hundreds of observation platforms. Instructors, alien diplomats, and academic researchers watched every move. Most were expecting Do-hyun's team to dominate as they had in previous years. As the first round progressed, something unexpected happened. Junho's team began solving challenges faster than anyone anticipated. Their solutions weren't just correct, they were elegantly simple. They were breaking through problems using methods no one had considered before. Do-hyun watched in growing disbelief. His team, which had always relied on brute computational power, suddenly found themselves struggling against an approach they couldn't predict or understand. The human and his team were playing an entirely different game. The second challenge involved creating a communication network that could function under extreme electromagnetic interference. While other teams tried complex technological solutions, Junho's team developed a system inspired by biological communication methods, specifically, how human neural networks adapt and self-repair. Their solution was so innovative that several senior instructors leaned forward in surprise. They had never seen anything like it. A human-led team was outperforming species that had been exploring space for thousands of years. As challenges continued, the dynamics shifted. What had started as a competition was becoming a demonstration of human potential. Junho wasn't just participating, he was rewriting the understanding of technological problem-solving. Kira, the insectoid team member, began to understand Junho's approach. It wasn't about having the most advanced technology. It was about understanding the fundamental principles behind any system and finding creative ways to work with those principles. The final challenge approached. Do-hyun's team looked stressed, their previous confidence replaced by a growing sense of uncertainty. They had been the undisputed champions for years, and now everything was changing. Junho remained calm. To him, this wasn't just a competition. This was an opportunity to show that human intelligence represented something unique in the galaxy, an ability to adapt, to think differently, to see solutions where others saw only problems. As the final moments of the competition approached, the entire hall held its collective breath. Something extraordinary was happening and everyone knew it. The human and his team were about to make history. The final stage of the competition revealed a complexity that no one had anticipated. Junho's team stood in sharp contrast to Do-hyun's perfectly synchronized group. Where the Craxus team looked polished and rehearsed, Junho's team appeared almost chaotic. But there was method in their apparent randomness. As the challenge began, Junho started systematically exposing weaknesses in the existing technological infrastructure. His approach wasn't about direct confrontation, but about revealing fundamental flaws in systems that had been considered unbreakable for generations. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. While other teams struggled with a complex quantum encryption challenge, Junho identified a subtle pattern in the communication protocols. His fingers moved across the holographic interface, revealing vulnerabilities that had existed unnoticed for decades. Do-hyun watched in growing horror. Each of Junho's solutions wasn't just solving the problem, it was completely reimagining how the problem could be approached. The alien students around him began to whisper, their previous confidence crumbling with each passing minute. The Academy's senior researchers started recording everything. This wasn't just a student competition anymore. It had become a demonstration of an entirely new approach to technological problem-solving. Junho's team used what he called adaptive intelligence, a method that combined human creativity with technological precision. Where standard algorithms followed strict rules, his approach found unexpected pathways. It was like watching someone solve a maze by creating entirely new routes that no one had seen before. The communication network challenge became a turning point. Junho's team developed a solution that was so elegant in its simplicity that it made the previous methods look unnecessarily complicated. They weren't just solving problems, they were deconstructing entire technological paradigms. How is he doing this? Do-hyun muttered to himself, watching as Junho's team continued to break through challenge after challenge. The human wasn't just competing, he was systematically dismantling everything the Craxus team believed about technological superiority. Each solution revealed more than just technical skill. It showed a fundamental difference in thinking. Junho's approach was fluid, adaptive, willing to break rules that others considered sacred. He saw technology not as a fixed system, but as a living, breathing entity that could be reshaped. The Academy's main display began showing real-time comparisons between teams. Junho's group was not just winning, they were rewriting the understanding of technological problem-solving. Their efficiency was unprecedented, their methods revolutionary. Senior instructors exchanged shocked glances. This was more than a competition. This was a moment that would be remembered in academic history. A human-led team was challenging everything. They thought they knew about technological intelligence. Kira, the insectoid team member, began to understand Junho's true genius. He wasn't just solving problems, he was revealing the underlying principles that made those problems possible. Each solution was a lesson, each challenge an opportunity to demonstrate a new way of thinking. The final technological infrastructure challenge pushed everything to the limit. Junho's team began to expose critical vulnerabilities in systems that had been considered impenetrable. It wasn't about breaking things, it was about understanding them so completely that their fundamental weaknesses became obvious. Do-hyun's confidence completely shattered. The team that had dominated the Academy for years was being systematically taken apart by a human and a group of overlooked students. Every assumption they had about technological superiority was being challenged. As the competition entered its final hours, something extraordinary happened. The entire Academy seemed to hold its breath. This was more than a competition. This was a moment of transformation. Junho wasn't just winning. He was showing the entire galaxy what human potential could look like. Each solution was a statement, a declaration that intelligence isn't about how advanced your technology is, but about how you think about technology. The systematic deconstruction was complete. Do-hyun and his team stood defeated, not just in the competition, but in their entire understanding of technological excellence. The human had won. But more importantly, he had changed everything. The awards ceremony was unlike anything the Celestial Academy had ever witnessed. Junho stood on the central platform, not with the arrogance of a victor but with a calm understanding that transcended simple competition. Around him, the alien students who had once mocked him now watched with a mixture of respect and curiosity. Do-hyun approached slowly, his massive frame no longer seeming threatening. The defeat had changed him in ways he didn't yet understand. Where once he would have shown anger or resentment, now he displayed something more complex, a genuine desire to understand. "How did you do it?" Do-hyun asked, his voice stripped of its previous mockery. The question wasn't about the competition anymore. It was about something deeper, a fundamental shift in understanding. Junho didn't launch into a technical explanation. Instead, he spoke about collaboration, about seeing challenges as opportunities for collective growth. His words were simple, but they carried a weight that resonated through the entire hall. He talked about how human potential wasn't about individual superiority, but about the ability to adapt, to learn, to work together. The Academy's senior researchers were fascinated. What they witnessed wasn't just a competition victory, it was a cultural transformation. Junho had done something unprecedented. He had taken a group of overlooked students and shown their true potential. Kira, the insectoid team member, stood beside Junho. Her species had always been considered too different, too unusual to be taken seriously. Now she stood as living proof that diversity was a strength, not a weakness. Her antennae moved with a new sense of pride. The competition results would be remembered, but something more important was happening. The alien students were beginning to see humans differently. No longer were they the primitive species from a small planet. They were innovators, thinkers, problem solvers who could challenge established systems. During the reception, students from different species began approaching Junho. They wanted to understand his approach, to learn from his method of thinking. What had started as a competition was becoming something more, an exchange of ideas, a moment of genuine cultural understanding. Junho's instructor Vox watched with a knowing smile. He understood that true intelligence wasn't about winning, but about creating opportunities for mutual growth. The human had not just competed, he had transformed the entire academic environment. The most surprising transformation was Do-hyun. The once arrogant leader now sought Junho's guidance. He asked questions about human problem-solving techniques, about the philosophy behind their approach to challenges. It was a complete reversal of their previous relationship. "We thought humans were weak," one of the senior alien administrators commented privately. "We were wrong. They're not just strong, they're adaptable in ways we never understood." As the evening progressed, something remarkable happened. The barriers between different species began to break down. Students who had previously stayed in their own groups now mixed shared ideas, discussed the competition. Junho had done more than win a challenge. He had created a platform for genuine communication. The Academy's communication networks were buzzing. News of the competition spread across multiple star systems. Humans were no longer seen as a young, inexperienced species. They were now viewed as potential partners, as innovative thinkers who could bring something unique to the galactic community. Junho didn't celebrate his victory with grand gestures. Instead, he continued to do what he did best: observe, learn, and prepare for the next challenge. His team gathered around him, no longer just participants, but a true collective of diverse talents. As the night ended, something had fundamentally changed. The Celestial Academy would never be the same. What had begun as a simple technological competition had become a moment of true cultural exchange. The human had won more than a competition. He had won understanding, and that was the greatest victory of all.